We'll begin with two major political moves out of North America, radically set to reshape global politics. In breaking news, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has announced he's resigning after nearly a decade in the top job, amid flailing support and disputes within his party over how to handle a second Donald Trump presidency.
That presidency is now less than 2 weeks away. The United States Congress has officially certified his win 4 years to the day since a Trump-inspired mob stormed the Capitol to interrupt that same process. We'll get the latest on that dramatic development out of Canada shortly, but first let's go to Barbara Miller. She's at the Capitol for us this morning. Barbara, good morning. So what can you tell us? What is it like there today?
Look, things went very smoothly, very calmly here at the Capitol today. There is a very heavy security presence following the storming of the Capitol exactly 4 years ago, when a mob of Trump supporters, fired up by his claims of a stolen election, descended on the US Capitol. Today, January 6th, returned to the event it has been for many, many years. And that's a very routine, a very bureaucratic event where the Vice President presides over the official certification of the results. That fell this time to Kamala Harris, the losing party in November's election. She was here for the joint session of Congress, confirming that Donald Trump won that election. He got 312 electoral college votes. You only need 270 to take the White House. The whole thing was done and dusted within under 40 minutes. A very, very different scene to 4 years ago, when lawmakers had to return in the wee hours after that building. This building here had been cleared and it was safe again, and they went ahead then with the certification of the results. Kamala Harris left the chamber pretty quickly after she'd done her duty, and she spoke briefly to reporters about the day.
It was about what should be the norm and what the American people should be able to take for granted, which is that one of the most important pillars of our democracy is that there will be a peaceful transfer of power.
Barbara, the current president was not in town, but did issue a warning about the day?
Joe Biden is headed to New Orleans in the wake of that New Year's terrorist attack there, where he will commemorate the victims. But he did write an opinion piece published in the Washington Post, where he urged Americans not to forget what happened on January the 6th, 2021. He said it was important to remember, in the face of what he called an unrelenting effort to rewrite or even erase history. And those words are particularly poignant given that the incoming president, Donald Trump, has pledged to pardon those convicted over January the 6th, 2021. Now, we're not clear whether the president-elect intends to pardon all of them. Hundreds of people have been convicted on charges ranging from misdemeanors through assault through to seditious conspiracy. But Donald Trump says that this is something he will tackle on his first day in office, and that, Emma, is now just 2 weeks away.
Certainly is. Barbara Miller, thank you.
Well, let's get more on those dramatic events in Canada this morning. Richard Madan is a correspondent with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and he joins us now from Washington. Richard, great to have you on the program. Now, Justin Trudeau was one of the most popular leaders in the world when he first took office about 9 years ago. What do you believe caused his popularity to tank?
Yeah, good morning to you. I think a few things happened, Steph. I think there's a whole challenge facing incumbents all across the Western world. Progressive incumbents are really feeling the heat, not just Canada, but look at Germany, look at France, and of course what happened here in the United States with Vice President Kamala Harris. Also, there's a real sense that Trudeau overstayed his welcome. I covered his campaign back in 2015 in Canada. He emerged as this progressive liberal. His brand was feminism. He was about climate change. He was about legalizing marijuana. He wore those cool socks. People loved him. He was youthful. His father was a prime minister, and he came up from a from the doldrums of third place in Canada to win a resounding majority in the Canadian Parliament. And over the course of his 9-year tenure, the scandals, the arrogance of his government, the seeming tone deaf by his ministers really started to wear thin with many Canadians. And then, of course, post-pandemic, you really started to see that anger bubble up. And then in the past few years, you compound a housing crisis, high unemployment, rising inflation, and a government that didn't really seem to get a handle on things. And I think it was really capped when Justin Trudeau went to Mar-a-Lago to visit incoming President Donald Trump, when he started threatening those 25% tariffs across the board. Trump then started mocking Trudeau publicly, downgrading him as Prime Minister, calling him Governor Justin Trudeau. Then he started suggesting that Canada should be the 51st state. I think that really caused a leadership crisis within the Liberal Party. His caucus was divided, saying he's not handling the incoming Trump presidency very well. Then his finance minister quit the day before his fall economic update. Steph, that would be like Vice President Kamala Harris quitting before Joe Biden read the State of the Union address and trashed him on her way out the door. Finally, some warning signs. He lost a by-election in Liberal Toronto. That would be like the Democrats losing a by-election in San Francisco. The writing was on the wall there, and there was a real sense he overstayed his welcome. He was under tremendous pressure to call it quits over the Christmas holidays, and today, of course, he made it official.
As you said, Richard, you've been covering Justin Trudeau since you were on his campaign plane in 2015 when he won office for the first time. You've interviewed him many times since then. How do you think he would personally be feeling about his long time as Prime Minister coming to this?
Yeah, I don't believe this is the way he wanted to go. He wanted to go on top. You'll recall his father was Prime Minister way back in the 70s and 80s. He famously said he took a walk in the snow and decided to call it a career. Justin Trudeau does not have this luxury. The pressure was building. He's down some 20-25% in public opinion polls against the Conservatives, and his popularity it's below zero. It's not very high. This is not the way he wanted to go. But there was a lot of criticism around Trudeau and his inner circle in the last few years. They were tone deaf. They were arrogant. Trudeau was known to have a bit of a temper, and there was criticism from his own members of Parliament saying that Trudeau and his inner circle treated the Prime Minister's office like a high school, a popular high school. He was a popular kid in school. If you weren't in his clique, you were nowhere. So that is really the sense that many Liberals are now starting to say in the aftermath of Trudeau going public with his resignation. So this is not the way he wanted to write his final chapter of public life. And I suspect it was difficult for him to make his decision because he really believed that he was going to win the next election, which is slated for this fall. But clearly the writing was on the wall. He was down in the polls. He lost support of his own party, and he was facing a crushing defeat in October. And he was under tremendous pressure by his party to do something, to pack it in, call it quits. So he will stay on as Prime Minister until March. He's prorogued Parliament for the next few months, which is setting up another crisis in Canada. There's really a caretaker government while Donald Trump gets elected. There's really no point person to fend off these threats of tariffs from the United States against Canada. And that has a lot of people nervous, and it obviously has a lot of Liberals nervous as they also face re-election this fall.
Yeah, you mentioned how the relationship and the goading from Donald Trump was partly contributing to Justin Trudeau's downfall. We've just seen in the last hour or so Donald Trump posting on Truth Social in reaction to Trudeau's resignation. He's suggesting that Canada should merge with the US and then wouldn't have a problem with tariffs. Obviously, dealing with Donald Trump is going to be a problem for whoever takes over the Liberal Party, whether they win the next election, which happens before October, or the Conservative Party if they win. What do Canadians want to see from their leader in terms of how that person deals with a second Trump presidency?
Well, the Canadians know what Trump 1.0 was like. He's chaotic. He throws a lot of shade their way. And obviously, his relationship with Justin Trudeau has changed dramatically. Let's just think back when Trudeau won in 2015. He was this global progressive rock star. He was on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine. He was praised by Liberals as this progressive champion of the liberal order, comparing it to Donald Trump. He went down to visit Trump at the White House early on in the Trump presidency. Trump respected him. He treated him like the rock star he was at the time. Trudeau's popularity was higher than Trump's popularity at the time. Now, fast forward, everything is turned upside down. Trump is going into office just as Trudeau is planning his exit. So Canadians would like to see a prime minister who stands up for Canada, who pushes back with these taunts by incoming President Trump of Canada being a 51st state, mocking Trudeau, mocking the country. They're hoping for somebody to fill that leadership vacuum that Trudeau appears to have abdicated since his leadership crisis really started to gain steam up in Ottawa. So that is going to be a major test for the incoming Prime Minister, and obviously that'll be a key ballot box question when Canadians hit the polls. And just to put this in perspective, Steph, the next G7 meeting is in Canada this year. Trudeau was supposed to be presiding the G7. Well, he's leaving, so Trump is going to make his entry back into Canada as the next president of the United States. Who knows who's going to shake his hand as the Prime Minister of Canada or as a leader of the party when that happens.
Yeah, it's a big day in Canadian politics. Richard Madan, thank you so much for joining us.